Just want to give one kind of housekeeping note. They wanted me to remind everybody the after party starts at 6, runs from 6 to 8. We'll be handing drinks probably after this speech, after the next one. You're in track 2. This is James Siegel, and his title of his speech is, or talk is Outside the Echo Chamber.
All right, as he said, my name is James Siegel. Got a bunch of nice fancy letters after my name. They don't mean a whole heck of a lot except for the fact that they make it a little easier before HR departments. My Twitter handle is @WolfFlight. The title of my talk is Breaking Out of the Echo Chamber. This, I feel right now, we're in is an echo chamber. We're talking back and forth. We're not getting outside these walls. I hope we all remember we fight for the users. This is attributed back to Tron in 1982. Back when I was a kid, this was the thought that we all had about security. We were fighting for the users. Somehow we've lost that in a lot of cases. Maybe we need to get them involved in finding and creating the solutions. The WolfFlight goes back to my flight gaming days. Lots of flight simulators, lots of combat. Flight being 2 planes together, and wolf being one of my favorite animals. That's the term, WolfFlight. The obligatory "Who the hell am I" slide. Well, I'm a sysadmin for MIE, Medical Informatics Engineering. It's a great company. Started out as a small organization as an ISP for local doctor's offices in the Northeast Indiana area, and has grown much larger than that. We have EMR and EHR solutions servicing great companies like Dow, Eli Lilly, Disney, along with almost all of the hospitals in Northeast Indiana and quite a few around the country. And we've pretty well saturated the doctor's office market. So they pretty much have a handle on what's going on, at least with that facet. And I'm proud to be part of that organization. I'm a recent college graduate. I waited until I was in my 40s to do this. I've been a computer geek for a long time, though. I started with an Altair. I had a Sinclair. I've been doing this for a long time. Unfortunately, things kind of got in the way. When I was in school, I got involved as a CCDC competitor. For those of you that aren't aware, CCDC is a collegiate cyber defense competition. They take a group of kids, or students, some of us older, and you have a team of up to 12 to 15 members depending upon the region. You can only compete with 8. They take the team and they put them in a condensed situation where they're expected to basically take over for an IT team that was just fired or let go, and they bring the team in and say, here's your network. You have no idea what it looks like going through the door, and you don't have to get it properly configured while they're handing you business tasks, whether it's they just hired a new employee, get their user account set up. We just let somebody go, get them out of the system. And while all that's going on, you're being actively and actually attacked by a red team. Some of the great people, Martin, Dave, a lot of great others that come and actively attack those networks. So it gives you a huge amount of condensed experience in a short amount of time. It's a great challenge. If you're not involved with one now, you might want to find out if there's one in your area that maybe you can help out with. The kids need help. Some schools are leery about getting in the concept. Our community needs to be responsible in making sure those efforts move forward to improve the situation. I was a Marine. I got out of high school and went into the Marine Corps. Very proud of that. I personally, my philosophy is I was a peacetime Marine in the 80s. I don't like to take credit for the actions and activities of the guys who are active right now. I have way too much respect for them. So when somebody comes and says, "Oh, you were a Marine," I'm like, yeah, please don't think of me like you do them. While I am proud to be a Marine, I am not one of them, and I have too much respect for the guys who have those 1,000-yard stares. They deserve the credit, not me. So all this being said, my purpose now is to take up the challenge of becoming an InfoSec evangelist, spreading the word. Lots of people, like Martin, they think evangelist is a bad word, and I don't think it's the best word either. So the question is, we got all these people that come up here and speak, and I love them. I think they're great. I respect every single one of them. But are we just talking to hear ourselves speak? Are we just in here and not getting the message out to those that need it? Jason Street had a great quote at ThoughtCon in Chicago a couple months ago, and it was repeated by another speaker besides Detroit. There are all of the computer users out there, and there are IT departments within that community. And there are people within those IT departments who perhaps have a security tasking. Maybe they run a scan for their organization. Maybe they set up the firewalls. Maybe they just have security in their title. Then there's our community, those of us who are interested in it. We're passionate about it. And then, unfortunately, there are a select few who perhaps only get up here just for the adoration of everybody out in the crowd. I personally, I don't think I'm one of those. This is my first time, so obviously I can't be in it for the adoration. And I want you to know I'm not up here just so I can put on my resume, I spoke at a conference. I really am passionate about the message I'm trying to portray today. So, right before ThoughtCon, Rafal, the White Rabbit, posted a question on Twitter, do we have too many conferences? Come on, aren't there too many? That was his point. Aren't we just talking to each other? And my reply was, no, we don't have too many conferences. In fact, we don't have enough. But we got great ones like Nauticon, who was here in Cleveland. Yeah, Nauticon. ShmooCon, DEFCON, TourCon, GurCon, besides Detroit, DerbyCon. Yay, DerbyCon! ISD podcast listeners. And of course, we are here today at Besides Cleveland. And a whole lot more. Rafal said, and commented to me and to others, that there are so many conferences, he could literally go to a conference almost every single day. And while I completely respect Rafal, he's a great individual, I love his work, I respect his opinions, I'm impressed that he has the job he has as HP's security evangelist. He is a corporate spokesperson, and he gets paid to do it, whereas I am up here doing it for free, and when you guys, well, the other speakers get up there doing it for free or out of their own pocket. And so there is that argument that while he could maybe go to one every day, I, unfortunately, because of my life, and you, because of your lives, cannot go to one every day. And the fact is, there are tons of people who can't go to any. So, what are we faced with here? As security professionals, we wake up every day, and like Wolfgang just said in his presentation not too long ago, every day there's more and more news. It would take him 4 days to try and keep up with the news that came out in one day. There's another breach. There's another virus that came out. There's Chinese hackers trying to break into our organizations. There's companies like Sony dealing with massive economic repercussions from their breach. Anybody really think DNA exchanger really did anything? I mean, I've got tons of friends and family. It didn't really affect anything. But again, this is the kind of news we're being hit with every single day. And not just us, the public, the end users, the employees in your companies, your parents, your family, your grandparents, your kids. They don't even know what half of this stuff is. And I think it's our job to tell them. So, those poor people, this is what they hear on the news. It's rabbit season. Oh no, it's Stuxnet. It's duck season. No, it's not Stuxnet, it's Flame. It's APT. It's whatever the flavor of the day is. So then they get hit with, it's duck season, it's rabbit season, it's duck season, it's rabbit season. They get completely confused and lost. Until it looks like this. It looks like it's everything season to them. They are literally bewildered by what they're being hit by every single day. Those of us in the community, we have a term for it. Fear, uncertainty, and doubt. It's what they're getting hit with by the media every single day. So my point is that us as a community, we have to make sure it's FUD season. So, that being said, unfortunately, everything's connected. It doesn't matter whether it's their cell phone, their laptop, their email accounts, their phones. I've got an internet TV. Isn't that great? I've got internet on my TV. Aren't these great products here? I don't want to pick on Samsung. They were just easy for me to pull down and find references of. They've got a refrigerator that can connect to the internet, has apps running on it, and tell you what the weather is outside because you're too lazy to go look out the window. They got a Samsung Wi-Fi washer and dryer. You can connect to your washer and dryer via the internet and start your laundry. My question as an InfoSec professional is, wait a minute. I put the clothes in the laundry. Why didn't I just start it then? Why do I need to connect to it from the internet? This has huge security implications. And these are simple devices. There's much more devices inside their house that are getting connected to the internet. Their power. I don't want to go into too many of them, but just take, for example, somebody's power. There are internet devices now where you can monitor your power consumption. By definition, those devices can also be used to shut it down, turn it on. Maybe your neighbor's mad at you and wants to run up your electric bill every month, so instead of paying $200, you're paying $500. Who knows? But these are implications that the consumer is not aware of. Here's some other ones, other issues. Your iPhone is now your car key. Siri, start my car. This was a concept in 2009. Somebody just said, hey, why can't we create an app that we can start our car with? So somebody went out and did it. There's now one for the Android where you can start your car. I don't know how many of you have seen that commercial where the guy is standing next to the car and he calls the girl who's out on an airplane and she starts her car. Wait a minute. How does the car even know it's really her starting the car? You and I know that there are security researchers out there that are proving that somebody else could actually take control of that vehicle. So, Georgia, I love Georgia Biden. She does some great work. Is there a phone in my pocket? I don't think so. The average consumer thinks that essentially what they have in their pocket is a phone that's really smart. That's the name we have for them, or that the market has for them. Smartphones. They're not smartphones at all. They're computers that actually act like a phone. And unfortunately, those computers have all of the power, essentially, of a device from roughly 10 years ago and none of the security controls. None. Or essentially none. And I've got a couple simple example up here. The HTC Evo, by all means, is not a first-generation phone right now. I mean, not cutting edge. I'm glad I've got a Razr. And I've got a 10-year-old Dell Optiflex up there for comparison. They're roughly similar. I mean, sure, the Dell had a bigger hard drive. That's only because it's kind of hard to fit an 80 gig hard drive in something as small as a cell phone. Doesn't mean the technology's not coming, just that it's not here yet. So, the poor average consumer, our poor average user, I'm not just talking about employees here, I'm talking about everybody. The poor average user is faced with things like viruses, spyware, firewalls. They are told, and rightfully so, that they need to run antivirus. You know and I know from listening to other speakers here today and at other conferences that antivirus doesn't necessarily work. I mean, Dave can tell you, yes, the antivirus vendors are getting better, and they've stopped what he did last week. Like he said, he just came out with something new, and they're not stopping yet. Now they spoke about it, they'll stop it, and eventually somebody else will come up with something that they can't stop. Somebody else will come up with something else. It's an ever-revolving door. Spyware protection, it's the same thing. Although spyware, it has some of the same problems that antivirus does, but spyware is getting a little bit less of a threat because there's way too many other ways to get the information. My passion in InfoSec is social reconnaissance, finding out the facts and data that people put out there that they don't even really realize they put out there. That information, I don't need spyware to go get it, they're giving it to me. Firewalls, while they're great and absolutely necessary, for the average person, whether they're in an office or whether they're at home, has no idea how to properly configure them. They don't. Some people in some IT departments don't know how to properly configure them. So what do? They just open them up. To such a degree that you don't even need to go to some special method to get around them. You can just go over port 80. They're surfing the web. You can go over port 25. They're doing email. You know, they just use their standard open port and it'll get right through. They're not aware of it. They don't understand why they need to do it. In the meantime, I don't want to poke fun at any of these companies because I think they're all great and they all have their place. But the end user is being told they need antivirus, rightfully so. But they have a perception that antivirus stops everything and protects them. And part of that is the advertising these companies do. Safe never sleeps. Over here, the Norton one says, what you want to happen only when you want it to happen. Adware, computer status is protected. There are no security problems. That's nice. And then, of course, this one here in the middle, get Nod 32 antivirus and stop worrying. You don't have to worry because safe will never sleep. It'll only happen when you want it to happen and how you want it to happen. And, hey, you're protected. There's no security problems. This is what the consumer is seeing in their advertising. This is the thought that they have. You and I know it's a lie, but they don't. So the issue is that we need to increase awareness. And it was so nice that the federal government, through the Department of Homeland Security, came up with a concept of Cyber Security Awareness Month. October of every month since 2009 has been designated by the Department of Homeland Security as our Cybersecurity Awareness Month. I give a whole month to it. I thought there was 11 months in the year, but they only want to care about it for one, which is good because at least they're trying. It's not very effective because when I show this to people in my house, when I show this to people at work, they're not even aware this exists. But why do we even need the month? Well, we need the month because while some of the great speakers here have talked about protecting your company, protecting your organization, training your employees, my point is that the issue is not just with your employees. Our security perimeters are no longer at our walls. The issues don't end at the door when the employee comes in and out. The issues surround their entire environment. I tell people, if a grandmother surfs to a malicious site on the internet, sends a link to her granddaughter, the granddaughter shows the mother, and the mother forwards it to her husband at work. I'm not trying to be sexist here, but when she sends it to her husband at work, those actions may have completely compromised a multi-million-dollar company's security posture. All because of simple actions that looked completely innocent. But because of every little breakdown in security awareness along the way, the compromise occurred. No amount of security training of the employees is going to solve that problem, because the employee is going to trust the email from his wife or the link that he gets from his wife. She's going to trust the one she gets from her daughter, and the daughter trusted the grandmother. There needs to be training across the board. And it's going to take effort. It's going to take some time. We're not going to fix it all overnight. The problem is that those poor users out there, the echo chamber that they're in isn't bound by these walls. It's bound by their entire environment. And what they're being hit with is the media telling them whatever fear point they have that day. It's the bad emails being sent around between people about watch out for this virus, watch out for that virus that may or may not be true. It's the weird links on Facebook warning them, don't click there, don't click here. And what happens? Somebody actually does click on it. And it's my contention, and the contention of some other people that I know, that some of those chain mails that get started about the warnings about the viruses, some of those Facebook postings about the warnings about the viruses were actually started by the virus creators. Because then the person forwards a chain mail about a warning, and it actually has the malicious code inside of it. They're warning you about something, and by passing it along, you're actually accomplishing what they wanted to accomplish. So what happens with our existing training? We've heard a lot of talk here today about improving training in companies, improving awareness. And the fact is the current methods that we use don't work. We've heard talks about the fact that we put posters on the walls. They're not the greatest. You can tell somebody something, don't click on those links. 2 weeks later, they've forgotten, and they go back and click on the link. We need to make this awareness training important to the end user. There's an ISSA webinar a few weeks ago that talked about improving security awareness. And one of the comments that one of the speakers made is that perhaps our community needs to take some lessons from the Safety Institute. When they do safety training in companies and factories, they make it so that the employee can directly see what a result of an action might be. A forklift driver going around a corner too fast may hit somebody. The employees who see those videos in those workplaces, they may have already done some of those actions. They may have been that bad employee. When they see those actions, they can see what the results might have been, and they're usually couched in some type of humor. It looks like a funny situation, so it's not really dark and shadowy to them. It's not scary. And not only that, it points the finger at them without really pointing the finger at them. There's no laying blame. There's no saying, why did you click on that link? It's made to be impersonal and a little bit easier for them to take than what our community normally does. And I want to point out that I'm guilty of this. I'm pointed out by my girlfriend at home. When we talk to people, as IT professionals, as security professionals, we tend to talk down to them. They're the stupid user. As somebody commented earlier today, they're not fools. If they are, it's not their fault, it's ours. Saw a tweet on Twitter the other day that said the next person that says those stupid users needs to be punched in the groin. It's not their fault. We are not educating them. If we know, then we should be the ones teaching them. But if we approach them with highly technical language and talk about APT or talk about ports and sockets on a firewall, they're not going to get it. That's not their language. It's our language. It's the terms we use amongst each other. We have to find a way to talk to them in their language. Again, Wolfgang talked a deal about talking to the C-level executives at his company, talking to the employees at the other employees at his company. You need to find a way to communicate to them in the language that they speak. If they're bankers, you need to speak to them in the language that bankers use, the terminology that they use, the points that matter to them. If you're talking to somebody's grandmother, it needs to be in a language that they understand. If it's a high school student, it needs to be couched in terms that they'll agree with or that feel comfortable with them. Unfortunately, most of the security training now revolves around too much technical information and not enough of the meat of the problem. And why are there not more people at this conference that aren't InfoSec people? How many people here are at their very first conference? One? Two? So are you just here to find out what it's all about, or are you involved somewhere in the industry? In the industry? Okay. My point is, why are there not more people here that aren't? Why don't we have bankers here? Why don't we have lawyers here? Why don't we have doctors here? Why don't we have mothers here and husbands and wives? Because this is what they think. When they hear about a hacker conference or a security conference, they're scared to come here. They know they're not going to understand the terminology that we're using, and they think that we're all evil, vicious people who are going to blow them up. That's the wrong message for them to have. We're never going to get the point across until we can talk to them in terms and ways that they feel comfortable with, not that we feel comfortable with. That's my obligatory laws cat picture there. So my point is, we need to break out of the echo chamber. This room that we're in, talking back and forth to each other, the conference, we need to turn around and take what we learn here, what we learn at other conferences, what we know, the information that we gather on a day-to-day basis, and take it and go outside of these conferences. I'm not saying not to have these conferences. We need every single one of these conferences because they're where we share the information. They're how we pass it back and forth between each other. But we need to find a way to get out to them. We need to go to buildings and trade expos. They're wiring offices and homes for complete internet access, often without ever training the people on how to protect it. We need to go to medical conferences. They're dealing with hip issues. They need to find out the security details up front, not 6 months later when they're trying to deal with something in their office, but before they actually start. We need to go to insurance conferences and banking conferences. We need to talk to these people in a venue that they're already at. They're not coming to ours. We need to find a way to go to theirs. Iron Fog just posted on Twitter about 2 hours ago the same thing. Aren't InfoSec people just going to InfoSec people to talk to each other? Why aren't they going to the other conferences? This was before my talk, before any of this got out. Another comment came out on Twitter by Iron Fog along the same lines. I was like, that validates exactly my point. We need to get out of these walls, break out of our own echo chamber, and go and get into theirs. The issue is also that we're dealing with a level of intelligence that we as IT people and InfoSec people sometimes find difficult to understand. This picture came out a few days ago on Twitter and on Facebook, and the point was, it's 2012. Has it really sunk to this? And it is uncomfortable to me. Like I said, I started this years and years and years ago. I started coding. And the thought that we have to have books like these is sickening to me. I mean, I realize they're necessary, but it does seem, weren't we all promised flying cars? Weren't we all promised robots in our house? Isn't it our job as IT people, as InfoSec people, to help try and raise awareness and raise the stakes so that at some point we can all have that with a security consciousness in mind? The joke about this picture, it was interesting when I saw this picture because I heard a comedian a couple months ago on the Bob and Tom show say that he went to the store to go get a book because he had just got a new computer and he didn't understand how to do something on it. I don't remember what it was he was trying to do, but he didn't know how to do it. So he went to the bookstore to look for a book on it. And he found a section of books for dummies. And he said, oh, wow, they got a whole section of books just for me. So he bought the book and he took it home. And guess what? The book didn't tell him how to do it either. He couldn't even understand the book. He ended up getting his nephew to come over and do it for him. He took the book back, and the clerk at the bookstore wanted to know why he was returning the book. He said, apparently, I'm not even smart enough to be a dummy. Unfortunately, that's the situation we find ourselves in. Had a talk earlier where they mentioned about IQ and how not everybody is as smart as everybody else, and that's fine. We need to find a way to talk to them in terminology they understand. If we have to dumb it down a little bit, I don't want to put my letter quotes around that, dumb it down, then fine. But we still need to find a way to raise awareness because those users are out there too. So I'm going to sidetrack here a little bit. I'm going to talk about some of the stuff we're dealing with here. It's really scary from a security point. We got cars that are Wi-Fi hotspots. We got cars that are being remotely controlled. I mean, we saw the iPhone app. We saw the Android app. This down here, this article, some scientists went out in a parking lot. They didn't want to go out on the highway. And they showed that they could control a car. They could make it start up and go. And they could stop it and they could kill the engine. All without being in it, controlled from a wireless laptop. That's scary. The fact that we can turn our cars into weapons because the car manufacturers are putting technology in the cars without thinking about the implications. They're not asking our community, what are the risks? We're not going to them and saying, hey, have you thought about this before you do it? We're not being involved in those discussions. And why not? There's a firewall in the car. It's between the engine and the cabin. It's not in the network. These people, they need our help too. I like to point out, each of us needs to be our own Johnny Long. Those of you who may not know who Johnny Long is, I'm pretty sure everybody here does. Everybody comfortable with who Johnny Long is? Every one of us could be our own Johnny Long in our own way, shape, and form. I'm not saying you got to take hours and hours and hours out of your day. I'm not saying you got to devote a whole month. But if you help 2 or 3 people, if you can spread the awarenesses to your family, and I know it's hard. I guarantee, we all have families that no matter how much we try and talk to them, they don't quite get it. But we need to try. We need to communicate to schools. We need to communicate to senior centers. We need to, especially schools. I'll go back to the schools because we need to make sure that next generation already has the awareness. If it's going to be hard to teach grandma, I agree, it's not going to be easy. If it's hard to teach somebody who's already set in their ways, fine, but we can start at the bottom. We can devote our time teaching elementary school kids. We can devote our time teaching high school kids. We can make them develop the habits that are secure, that will make them safer, that will improve it. I wanted to point out, for those of you, everybody here was comfortable with Johnny Long, but I'm Johnny Long, hackforcharity.org. I made sure I wore my t-shirt today. I fully support his concept, but I think that while what Johnny's doing in Uganda is great, we have our own issues here at home, and I encourage everybody to send money to Johnny. They need it, but we can do some work here. Now, that being said, we're not all going to be able to go talk to bankers. I would feel seriously uncomfortable going and talking to a bunch of bankers. God bless the financial services people. I work with people in the healthcare field. They're a little bit easier to talk to. We're not all going to be able to talk to grandmothers. We're not all going to be able to talk to teenagers. There may be difficulties in dealing with some of those people. That's fine. Those that can, should. And if you can't, you should support the people that are. Even if you can't do it, if you know somebody that is trying to do something like this, you should be fully supportive of them. We're all geeks, we're all nerds, we're all introverted. This is my first time getting up here to speak. Georgia said, no, you just need to go do it. Okay? I hated my speech class in college. Man, I hated it. So we're not the most social people. We're social among ourselves, but we're not the most social people. We're not the ones going up and just starting a random conversation with people, especially about stuff that's not important to us. And part of it is, if it's important to them, then as part of increasing security awareness, we have to find a way to make it important to us. At least find a way to make it important enough to get across the security aspects of whatever it is they're doing. I'd like to thank you very much. I kind of ran through that pretty quick. It was a little wordy when I first practiced it. My name is James Siegel. There's my email up here. My Twitter is @WolfFlight. My website's currently under a redesign. I have a simple website up there. Does anybody have any questions or comments or ideas? Because what I would really like to say is, we're going to have dinner and drinks when this is all over. I would encourage everybody to try and talk to as many people as they can. Share your thoughts. Learn new methodologies, things you're not even aware of. And then take that information and go and spread it outside this echo chamber. And anybody that wants to contact me about this or anything else, I'd be happy to talk about it. Yes?
I would say one thing, which is security awareness training framework goal ultimately is to help get outside the echo chamber.
Right, no, when I heard your talk, like I said, right.
Like to have people involved as much as we can with helping us do that.
Right. Thank you. I will say that, like I deal with healthcare professionals. My girlfriend is a HIT, a health information technologist. We have a comment at home that we like to talk about. Doctors are very, very intelligent. I'm not putting them down in any way, shape, or form. I mean, to be able to be a heart surgeon has got to take way more brains than I've got. Unfortunately, when it comes to IT, most of them are way down here. They don't get it. It's beyond their purview. It's not inside their frame of reference. So dealing with them sometimes can get to be a little difficult, but it's necessary. And that goes across the board to other industries as well. They have their smarts. You can't knock them. Whatever business they're in, I don't care if it's a carpenter. If you're not a carpenter too, then he's a little bit smarter than you, at least in that field. So you can't knock him in that. But they need our awareness. Anything else? Thank you. The biggest problem, like I said, for a lot of people, there was a point I didn't make. A lot of these conferences, they're all over the country, they're all over the globe, and it's really impossible to make it. Especially somebody, a working professional, to get time off from work. And